So just to say good afternoon, everybody, on this wonderful sunny afternoon. My name is Susie Webb. I'm used to, as I said, I'm used to sort of directing choirs or singing. I'm not used to really holding kind of council meetings, but I was very kindly asked if I would chair this afternoon. The one thing that I would ask everybody, I think we're all here essentially for the same purpose, and we're all feeling quite passionate at the moment. But to ensure that we actually get through everything and get through all of the items this afternoon, if we could just make sure that you try not to speak over each other, which is very difficult when you're feeling kind of passionate about something. But obviously we've got the digital sort of lag and delay going on that happens anyway, unfortunately, in technology. It would have been lovely to have kind of had the opportunity to get together in a hall where we could have actually voiced our opinions ahead of this stage, because obviously things seem to have picked up quite quickly. And we're in a situation where the sort of one of the decisions sort of being made is being made at the end of March, and obviously it would have been nicer a year ago, or when the plans were first proposed, for us to have actually been in this situation. So if everybody, if we get to the stage that people want to make a comment on something that somebody said, I don't want you to feel like you're in school, but if you could possibly just raise your hand, and then I can flick back and forth the screens to see if somebody's got something that they'd like to say, and then that way hopefully everybody this afternoon will be in a position that they feel that they've actually had a fair say, and you all hopefully will go away this afternoon feeling like we've accomplished something, rather than thinking that we've just all got into a heated debate without any great outcome. The other thing I've been asked to mention as well is that David Davis, he will be joining us very shortly, but as he's a Monmouth MP, he can interject, and he can make a sort of brief points about what is being said, but obviously he can't say too much because the fact is he is tied to Monmouth. I'm just going to, in fact he's here now, so I'll just admit him in 2 seconds. And yeah, we've got more and more people arriving. So Griffith, and I have to make an apology. My child actually went to Welsh primary school, and I've got a feeling that I'm actually pronouncing your name incorrectly. So would you just like to say hello to everybody?
Hi all. Thanks very much for attending. I really appreciate you taking the time to attend it, which is extremely important to all of us. We're very interested in finding a resolution to this particular issue. I'm so glad to have been able to communicate with great numbers of people, both over the phone and also directly via text chat and via text messages directly, just to hear your concerns. And it's been great that we've got such a great deal of involvement, people who are extremely passionate about it. And it's great to see us all working together in showing a united front and being able to achieve something really positive for the area. So I really hope today works very well for everyone. I hope that we're able to find lots of common consensus on this, and that ultimately we're able to find a really positive resolution for everyone. So I'd like to thank you again for attending, and I look forward to hearing what you all have to say and contribute on the numerous matters at hand today. And I'd also like to thank Susie for taking the time to chair the meeting, and we're extremely grateful to you for doing so.
Oh, my pleasure.
I know it's and as you say, you're used to doing such things with your choir, but I suppose with 90 people or so, it can be quite a daunting prospect. But thanks very much for taking the time to do it.
Oh, and I'm sure.
Thank you.
Fantastic. So we've already got an agenda sort of laid out this afternoon, and what I was hoping is that when I kind of call upon the people to make their... Hello?
Speaking.
Hi, Aid. Is that Aid speaking? No. Who is?
Yeah.
Okay. Can I just ask you to say your name? Who was just saying hello? Nope. Okay. Well, there we go. There's off to a good start. Vocal warm-ups it is then. No, what I was going to say is, obviously, if everybody kind of remains muted until the point that you are to ask your question, and obviously I'll flip back and forth the screen. So if anybody wants to make a point regarding something that has also been said, then we can address that as well. But let's carry on, because like I said, there is a lot to get through this afternoon. So I would like to invite Amy Elizabeth Bubella. Amy, are you there?
Hey, I'm here. Hello.
Fantastic. So can you tell us, well, essentially, can you present us with your point regarding about what's going on at the moment?
Okay, so the point is even though obviously a lot of you would be for the circus field, what's happened is the Welsh Government have announced to every council in Wales to have their own development scheme. So what's happening is that individual sites will be put forward either by the landowner or by the councils themselves for this big development scheme. And I believe it's been extended to 2043, I think, but they have so many houses they have to build according to Welsh Government. So it's changing all the time, obviously, with regards to new policies, who's in power. But with regards to these two sites, because I live in Pontyr and Fecfa, which is 1,100 houses, a hotel, a school, an industrial estate, and a medical research centre. And all this is on natural land and woodland. And obviously, with regards to your site, it's going to lead up to 1,500 houses just in a few short miles of each other, which I think is a very, very big development scheme. And one of the residents, Hayley, has noted we haven't had hardly any information or any letters about what's going on. We haven't been notified, and we haven't had a chance to put our opinion forward. All this has had to be within a matter of 2-3 weeks. And I do feel that there should be some acknowledgement of the fact that it's not been done with regards to letting residents know and having residents make the choice about what they want and having the opportunity to object themselves. And with regards to Wales announcing a climate emergency, I do feel that this is actually going in the opposite direction. And then on one hand, I found a policy that Wales wanted to build a forest. The First Minister said he wants a forest from one end of Wales all the way to the other. And then you have another development for putting all these houses in natural land. So I just don't know which way we're going with it. And I would rather have one direction that we could follow rather than not knowing what we're doing. Because at the end of the day, we're not going to have any natural land left, to be honest, especially with the Cambran area itself. I think the most of what we have of natural land is not going to be available to us much longer if we do let the development go through, which would be a shame.
I asked the local councillor, the local Labour councillor, I actually asked her the question with the development that has actually taken place already on Griffithstown and up the mountain, how many doctor's surgeries have been built? Have schools actually been considered? And pointed out the fact that we've had a comprehensive school taken down, and the new school that has been built has actually got a lower capacity than it had originally. And when I put the question to her regarding the houses that have actually been put on that school land, I was told at the time that the school was taken down, housing was not even considered a possibility, and I just don't believe that. And I think everybody here probably feels the same, in that it feels like we've kind of managed to create a bit of a stir about this, and it feels like it's been done a little bit underhanded in the sense that the pandemic has been used to effect of furthering things on quickly, when we've all essentially been kind of shut away in our houses and not even been aware, apart from a few of us who have seen, I think, 3 posters that have been put up. Has anyone else got anything to say regarding that? If you do, just pop up your hand and I can invite you, and then you can kind of unmute yourselves. Alan Slade, good afternoon, sir. Hang on, I might need to unmute you if you're not. 2 seconds. Yeah, I'm just asking you to just unmute yourself. You're still muted at the moment. There we go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can indeed. Thank you.
Great. I'm Alan Slade. I'm a councillor for Llantarnam. This is my colleague, Councillor David Thomas. Now, we've had a lot of development down in Llantarnam, as you can imagine. And I am quite keen on planning matters. Now, with the local development plan, the current one actually runs out this year, and this is for the replacement development plan, and it is something that the council has to have. It has to have a development plan because that informs the planning process. This site is actually a strategic site, the Circus field, that is being put forward. At the moment, it's still in a consultation stage, So we're not too late. The end of the consultation, I think, is the 26th of March, but I have heard they may extend that. So watch this space. Now, within the process, there is a process where they look at all these candidate sites and score them. And this particular site, the Circus Field, has achieved rather a low score and wouldn't have ordinarily have passed some of the early stages of assessment. Yet it seems to have gone past the normal stage just because, I think in the words of the LDP, it's a policy decision. So even though it isn't necessarily ideal or sustainable site, they want to push it forward anyway. So I think there are excellent reasons. The council themselves have put in the report of the candidate site. The council themselves have given excellent reasons why this should not go forward. Just a couple of other little points. They considered a number of options looking at housing supply over the next 15 years, and they chose. It was policy. The council chose to build the maximum number that were within the plan. So option 1 was quite a low number of houses per year. Option 6 was the highest. They've chosen option 6. So they put in a great demand on themselves, really. So to accomplish that, they obviously need a lot more land. Had they been a little less ambitious with their plans to build so many houses, this site may not even have gone forward, I don't think. So that would be one point. Another point I would quickly make, they keep talking about the housing list, the waiting list on the housing register. They keep giving a figure of 2,687 people on the housing list, but only 900 of those are in, well, you wouldn't call it acute need. There are, I've got the figures in front of me, there are 353 in the high housing need, homeless and gold bands, and 553 in the medium need silver band. Silver band, those people may well be in a property, but that property may not be suitable for them. So it isn't saying, well, it is saying that there's not enough houses. There clearly isn't. But I feel they overstate the need to build more and more. So that's just a couple of points I wanted to make.
I think one of the questions to ask as well is, are we talking about social housing or affordable housing here? Because the affordable housing, which has actually been presented, you're talking about houses that are in excess of £230,000.
Yes.
Up to kind of £480,000.
Well, it's
so it feels it doesn't feel that it's necessary. Yes, exactly. So it doesn't feel that it's necessarily, we're not necessarily having houses that people within the area could actually afford. This is about, I think, attracting people from across the bridge. And I'm sure that I'm not the only person that thinks that.
Yeah, definitely. Totally agree.
Richard, would you like to interject there? Thank you, Alan.
No, you're
welcome. I thank my colleague Alan for his very eloquent exposition there. Yes, I do believe that this development will not provide the social housing. The average wage in Torfaen is £22,000 per annum, which is a great. It falls greatly short of the amount required to get a mortgage for these expensive housing, and also I think this policy, this site inclusion, is endemic of the county's failure to regenerate the north of the county. We have a huge brownfield site, which everyone has probably heard of, the British Torfaen. It's the largest derelict industrial site in the United Kingdom. And for years, the local authority has been putting forward different plans to regenerate this site, and none of them has come to fruition. So it does disappoint me that there are brownfield sites within the county, and yet there are a great deal of greenfield sites included in the 96 potential sites in the proposed draft LDP. So I just thought I'd like to say that.
Absolutely. And as was pointed out earlier on, if we've got these kind of if we've got these sites already available, why are these not actually being looked at all? Because presumably, if you've got a site that's already got concrete down and it's already had the infrastructure taken into consideration with having that there, why have we got empty sites? Why have we got empty industrial sites? Because the circus field has actually been earmarked for industry. Now, local residents have not even been told what kind of industry. We've got no idea what kind of factory could be built upon that field. So I know that we are talking about houses, but you know, it is a concern as well, the fact that we've got other sites that are currently empty and they're not being looked at. And if they are being looked at, why are they not being looked at more seriously? So I'm just going to flit over to the page a second, only because I just want to make sure that why can't I see everybody? Hang on. Yes, there are still people I can't see. My apologies if I can't see you. Oh, hang on, if I just do this. All right. So I can see people on page 2 now. Has anybody got anything to say so far or in response to what has been said before we move on to the next item? Because like I said, we've got lots to get through this afternoon.
Yeah. Hi, Susie. Can I come in, please?
Yes. Okay. Who am I saying hello to?
I'm sorry, I've lost you on video, but I've still got you on audio. It's Councillor Hugh Bevan here. I'm the Torfaen County Borough Councillor for Pontier and Llanarafon East.
Hello there.
Ward. Good afternoon to everyone who's in attendance. Yeah, I just want to pick up on a couple of points, please, that have been made. I'd like first off to express my thanks to Amy for putting the petition together. One of the things of the pandemic was the community Facebook page that was set up covering Pontier and Llanfrecfa, and it's been very well publicised by that. I submitted the formal petition in objection to the proposed development of the revised local development plan at this full council meeting on Thursday just past. And there were over 820 signatures on it. Councillor Slade is right in terms of what he's saying, that the public consultation period has been extended from February. The current date is the 26th of March. From speaking to Rachel Jowett, who's the head of the planning and overseeing the revised local development plan, I understand there is a possibility that it could be extended further. The process that she's explained to me is that once the consultation has been formally closed, Torfaen will go away and produce a report. They will come up with what they call a final draft version of the revised local development plan. That will then be submitted to Welsh Government for a review and any comments and feedback. And then from what she said to me, there will be a further period of public consultation before the final report is brought back to all of Torfaen councillors for approval in council. Picking up on a couple of the other points that have been made, I know that there's a lot of opposition, certainly in this area and up in New Inn for the circus field. I understand that there's a second petition doing the rounds on change.org. I would urge anybody who's viewing this, who has concerns about it, to send an email through to Torfaen Council on the LDP email address to make their views known, so that they can be considered as part of the overall consultation. I agree with comments that my colleague Richard Overton has made and Alan Slade. There seems to be an appetite amongst developers for wanting to develop in the south end of Torfaen, because they know that they can get increased profits on sale of properties down here. I think it's appalling that they're not utilising the brownfield sites that we've got available. They seem hell-bent on tearing up every bit of green field, open space for putting houses on. I think it's entirely inappropriate to build 1,200 houses in Llanfrecffer and the top end of Pontyr. I have written to Julie Jones, the Welsh Labour member of the Senedd, and the response that I had back was basically that they are very much viewing this as an extension to what they are calling Cumbran East. So it's quite apparent from the response from Welsh Government, they are looking to extend Cumbran. We're already aware of approval being given to housing developments going the other side of the A4042. Once the new police headquarters is built, and where the old civic centre was, that's been earmarked for housing. I also want to pick up on the other point that was made in terms about the proposed sites and the quality of the proposed sites. We've seen exactly the same thing in Llanfrecffer and Pontyr as well, where sites that had previously been considered for development had been reviewed and rejected, and yet they are now being brought back in as a greater parcel of a whole number of sites. We're doing everything we can to object to this, and we've written to all the relevant parties, including David Davis, who is the MP actually for this area. He covers the whole up of not just Pontyr and Llanfrecffer, but across the Caeliog and Llanarafon as well. So, you know, we're doing everything we can, but I just wanted to give everybody on the call a bit more of an idea about the time frames of what is happening with the revised local development plan. I totally agree with the issue about affordable housing. When it comes to affordable housing, there's always a lot of toing and froing between the council and the developer. The council is obviously trying to push for the maximum amount of affordable housing it can achieve on any development. The developers have the opposing view. They want to reduce the amount of social housing so they can maximize their profits. And it's always a trade-off. If we try and insist on too high a level of affordable housing, the developer actually ends up walking away from the development by saying it's not cost effective. So there's always a lot of toing and froing, and it's a compromise in the end. I agree with the issue of affordability. That is an argument that has been put forward by Torfaen planning officers. They believe that the housing is going up there in essence for doctors and nurses working in the new hospital. So thanks, Susie. There's quite a lot in there. I'll be quiet now and I'll let others speak.
No problem. Thank you. I think one of the concerns for everybody is the speed at which this seems to have be steamrollering, and the fact that we have been given so little notice. Out of interest, Hugh, when were you aware of the development plan?
Okay, Susie. We have to, as Amy intimated in her opening remarks, the council is obliged to have a local development plan in place. This revised one now is going to be in place until 2033. As Councillor Slade mentioned, the previous local development plan expired at the end of this month, March 31st. But that's been brought forward to council on a pink paper this week to, on the basis of legal opinion, to extend the current local development plan until the new one can be approved and accepted. It's been kept very quiet in terms of the development. It's been in the background for a number of years, particularly with regard to the Science Medipark in the grounds of the hospital. I first objected to this in full council back in April 2019, when the original proposals back then were for 300 houses to be built in the Lanfrac area. So, you know, the fact that I spoke out about it then, and obviously since then, the proposals have changed dramatically. I know the farmer who owned the farm and the fields up adjacent to the hospital objected to the siting of the helicopter landing pad in terms of the proximity to his boundary. And I believe that he was bought out under a compulsory purchase order. So I think it is something under normal circumstances, they would have had a town hall meeting, but obviously because of COVID, they haven't been able to do that. I suspect because of the strength of opposition to this, that is why they've extended the period for the public consultation. But I certainly spoke out about this in April 2019 under the original proposals.
I think one of the concerns is the fact that we're actually in a pandemic right now. Everybody's shut down. So the fact that any decisions can be finalized when there are so many people that do not have access to the internet, do not have access to actually finding out about this. The older generation, for instance, will not necessarily be Zoom savvy and not on Facebook. And the fact that we're all finding out this in such a short space of time is appalling, I think. And it feels like the pandemic is almost being used to effect of actually being able to go ahead with these plans and not allowing residents to actually have a voice. Because I honestly believe that if everybody in Cwmbran had had a letter put through their door and given them the opportunity to actually come out and actually come to a hall and voice their opinion, I think there would be thousands of people that had their hand up to say, we're not happy with this. I think it was back in 2017. I think it was Nopa Nope who put the petition up as actually, I'll quickly share it with you actually, because I think it's a very interesting read. You don't necessarily have to look at all of the figures, but what I would ask all of you to do is to just read that bottom paragraph that actually says it's been identified that areas near to the A4042 suffer from poor air quality. Poor air quality. And that was actually in 2017. And now we're in 2021. And I'm assuming that each one of these houses that is put up is going to have at least one car attached to it, if not possibly two. How is that actually going to improve the air quality that has already been discussed as being poor? Anyway, I'm not here to get on my soapbox. I'm here to let you get on yours. So let's move over very quickly to Tracy and Kerry. Welcome. Are you here this afternoon?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can indeed. Am I speaking to Tracy or Kerry?
Tracy.
Hello, Tracy. Good afternoon. Would you like to put your question across, please?
Yeah, the question I'm asking, there is a lot of derelict properties in Torfaen. Why can't these properties be done up and put them out for housing if we're short on housing?
Absolutely. And also one of the points I think that was put across, maybe it was by Kerry, was about the impact on mental health. Because at the moment, as you know, we've all been shut down and we haven't been able to drive anywhere to go and exercise. So these sites have been incredibly important for everybody's well-being and health. And I know that we have access to the river, but one of the points I would like to put across is down the dike, those fields down there, that walkway was actually impassable several times this year due to flooding, which obviously poses a further concern. If we have already waterlogged fields, and they are waterlogged the majority of the year, that water is going to run off the concrete straight into the river, which is going to present everybody with huge flooding problems.
Yes, I work with mental health. I work in all types of mental health. I work on acute. I've worked on dementia. I've worked zinc addicts, Taliban, and this is going to have a massive impact on mental health. We've got these beautiful green spaces and these woods, bluebell woods, for people to be able to walk, see the nature to help their mental health. Like you said, if we chop down all these trees and the beautiful nature, obviously we are going to see flooding, because all that is not going to soak up the water, and we are going to be in like places we see on telly. We're just going to be totally flooded. And like I said, people's mental health in their houses, the stress of COVID is got a massive impact as well. And all these houses are going to have another impact. Schools, children with mental health, it's hard enough now. When these schools are overcrowded, that's going to have a massive impact on children's mental health, because if they're falling behind, because you've got 40 children in a classroom, it's massive for the rest of their life. I mean, this impacts till they're 60, 70 years of age.
Absolutely. Have we got anybody here that Kerry up close to me?
I still got the graph, the thing on there that you put on about the
Can you see it?
atmosphere. I can't get rid of it. Anyway, I'm just speaking for myself now, and the impact it's had on me and my feeling of well-being. I'm sure everybody feels similar, because it's just a horrible thing that they want to do. When I first read about this development on a poster at the bottom of Chapel Lane, I immediately felt, that's better. I immediately just felt helpless and powerless to stop it. I felt very stressed and started to think about it constantly, day and night. It affected my sleep. It makes me sick to my stomach at the thought that these fields and the trees and the hedges will be just cut down, and also the awful effect it will have on the wildlife and the insects and the birds. I feel my well-being and that of my family is affected by the constant worry and anxiety that I can't do anything to stop it. And they'll just come along and do it.
Absolutely. And I think currently, because we're all shut down, we're all forgetting how incredibly busy the A4042 is on a regular weekday, and what the air quality is like and how noisy it is. And so I would like to actually find out that any kind of studies or surveys that have been done, whether it's regards to flooding, pollution, whether it's regards, to mental well-being, whether it's regards to the ecology side of things. When have these actually been done? Have they only been done sort of the last 12 months? Were they done before we actually had lockdown? I think that these are really important questions, but most importantly, the fact that they're actually being discussed right now when it should be put on the back burner, because we're in a pandemic and we can't get out and talk to our neighbours about this and actually get feedback from the whole community, not just the lovely, sort of set, however many of you have actually managed to find out about it in time to come on this evening and actually talk about it.
I just think, sorry.
No, carry on, Tracy.
With all the landscape going and being chopped down, I mean, we are supposed to be saving this planet, right, for our future children. They're taking the trees down, the oxygen that's going, like we said, the wildlife. It's not just that. It's our physical health as well. Because you're taking away all these things that give. I mean, they're on about we need to plant more trees. You see it on. I mean, I watch all the wildlife programs. We need to plant trees everywhere, and they're taking them down.
We're currently being encouraged to do our bit by recycling, by using less cars, by walking to work more, yet the council deem it necessary to actually increase by quite a large capacity and actually taking away that land. It's horrendous. I know that there's lots of people actually want to speak, and my apologies for kind of rushing things on, but I know that we want to get some kind of outcome and some kind of idea today if we can actually move forward and if we can actually stop this. Or is it the case that we can only complain about it and not actually do anything? I think that's like really very, very important to find out. Can I just speak to Jane Rees-Parfitt? Are you there?
Hi.
Hi, how are you doing?
Yeah, I may be repeating a few things that people have already said. I've just written quite a few things that are really important to me, and that I think so. I do apologise in advance if I repeat anything that we've already
Not at all.
mentioned. Just want to basically say that I've lived in Croesy most of my life, and I've also brought up my 2 girls up in our wonderful, safe community. But our town, as we know it, is at the edge of being totally changed by the Torfaen Replacement Local Development Plan. It would seem planners have made decisions for our town without considering the impact on our communities or consulting us, the people who live here. There's talk of new businesses and houses being built on green spaces, while brown spaces are left to decay. Natural habitats are being destroyed before our eyes. The landscape of our town will change forever. Most of us already struggle to get a doctor's appointment, a local dentist, a school placement, or even home through the traffic. Just think what things will be like when we have thousands more people living in our area. How will our sewage and drainage systems cope? The businesses that are supposedly being set up, will they be run by local people, using local builders, local products, employing local people? Are the houses for local people, or are they for the overspill from Bristol? Now there are no more bridge charges. Torfaen has agreed to spend millions on a new train station at New Inn. I can think of a ton of other things that could benefit from that money. We must ask ourselves what measures have been taken to monitor wildlife in these fields. What about the protected species of animals, plants, insects and birds? We all have a new appreciation for our green spaces, especially during lockdown. Already the walks around the river and Boaton Lake are crowded, and now our fields are going to be built on. This talks about protecting our environment, climate change, health and well-being, etc. being important. This does not seem to apply to Torfaen. In non-pandemic times, the traffic on the A4042 is horrendous. This affects all of Torfaen. It's quicker to get to Bristol than it is to go 2.5 miles up the road to Pontypool during peak times. Recently, there have been council members doing traffic counts in the middle of a pandemic when we're being told to stay at home. These figures will represent unrealistic readings, and it's very underhand. During those peak times, some drivers take a shortcut down Chapel Lane. At the bottom, there's a weak stone bridge, historical stone bridge. It becomes a bottleneck. The area is already prone to flooding, and the concrete to the circus fields, and you're asking for trouble by the river there. We have seen an area in Crumlin become the most polluted road outside of London. We do not want this happening here. Torfaen towns are being mulched together. It's becoming the size of a city. Torfaen County Borough Council's notifications, literature and website information seems deliberately obtuse, and there's no option to object to these plans. They also direct people to their website, when not everyone has access to the internet, especially the elderly in our community. There's a possibility of damage to natural springs and the biodiversity of the woodlands. This would be sheer vandalism. On a historical point of interest, I'm hearing that there was a Roman villa somewhere in our surrounding fields. Roman artifacts have been found there, and also reports of a medieval burial site in the area. More recently, a prisoner of war camp and a Second World War airstrip was also in our fields. We need forward thinking, ideas and ventures. There are so many skilled, creative, talented people in our county, and there's no reason why we can't become a county of excellence. Think outside the box, celebrate innovation, enterprise, and become a town and county to be proud of. Set up cottage industries, open up sustainable businesses, embrace our history, who knows, even build an eco-village if we need to, using recycled materials that sit in harmony with the environment. We need somebody with vision to take control of this and to move us forward.
I feel like I need to stand and applaud, to be honest. Honestly, I am so moved by everything that you've said. I'm not only moved, I'm shocked. When you said, can I just ask you about the point about traffic actually being monitored?
It wasn't somebody I know somebody I know saw that being monitored at the
When we're all shut down.
We're all shut down, yeah.
I've seen it at the bottom of Chapel Lane.
That is just, I mean, that in itself is astonishing. The only thing I mean, on the fields behind me, the one thing I have seen up there is Torfaen Council doing soil samples, but we're not talking about an independent company doing this, an ecological company. We're talking about the council themselves are doing the soil samples. And when I went and actually asked what they were doing, and I made it clear that, you know, we weren't happy with what was happening, the young lady said, "I'm really sorry. We've actually been faced with a lot of people saying exactly the same thing."
Heartbreaking.
Honestly, Jane, that was remarkable. Thank you.
Okay.
Has anybody got anything that they'd like to say there?
It might be worth noting, a good friend of mine lives in Crossy, and I was talking to her the other day, and she said she went to bed at night, and when she woke up, the entire woods behind her house in Crossy had gone, all the bats had gone, all the wildlife had gone, and that was in a matter of hours. And she had wildlife protection with her, she had Greenpeace, she had every single organisation for protection she could think of, and they couldn't do anything about it. And unfortunately, I think if people don't listen to us, then we need to put people in power who will. That's the only way you're going to get anywhere, unfortunately. The Welsh Minister gave a 2018 document saying any development plan would be green, ecologically friendly, and he's given the council permission to build on anything they want with a legal document of compulsory buy, which means if you don't take the money, you're out anyway. And giving landowners opportunity to sell their land for profit rather than preserve the land for wildlife. And they're taking the opportunity to do this. They're using their power for, in my opinion, for going the opposite way.
I was actually told, with regards to my conversation with the councillor, I was sort of told, Susie, if we don't go ahead with this, the person that owns the land has the right to not let you walk on it. And my answer was, good, then let it stay green and none of us will walk on it. But at least we know that it's still there, which is honestly... Honestly, they'll walk away. Well, let them walk away. Let them walk away. Right. Okay. Let's move on to about ecological conservation, which is obviously what we've just been talking about. Lynn Blake. Hi. Oh, we just need to unmute you. Could you possibly just unmute yourself so we can hear you? Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Can you hear me? Thank you, Susie. I'm not an expert on this subject, but I'm passionate to learn more about this. Jane has already said everything I would desirably love to have said. So thank you, Jane, for that, because that cuts down our meeting and I don't want to repeat again. But I'm just looking behind you, the scenery, the picture you have behind you, Susie, just says it all. The beautiful fields, it's just the calm effect, the environment in its natural beauty. What I'm concerned about with the council, with any council, have they followed all the legal procedures regarding developing on any site? And if so, where is the evidence of that? Has consideration of the wildlife and the bees, the insects, has all this been considered? And are they still then prepared to destroy what is beautiful around us? I have already expressed on the site my heartfelt feelings. I have written many things on the site that express what a lot of people feel. I have put lots of visuals on the site of Save the Circus fields, which people have expressed their own feelings the same as myself. I might get overwhelmed and quite tearful in a minute because I just don't want anything to harm the environment around us. I'm sorry, I'm going to compose myself now. It's heartbreaking to feel that the people of Torfaen are not considered in any of these decisions. It is heartbreaking to feel that we are irrelevant to
and we are
any
council tax paying citizens that
Yep.
essentially,
And-
as you
and
said,
the
we're not
lovely
being
and-
considered.
And the amount of money that is being spent, I think, on the Pontypool station. Why? That's another huge consideration. Why is that being spent so much money? I know that on the Park Davis estate, that there's a possibility that there's a village going to be built there. It has been discussed, and I think a model has been made of that site for people to view. I would like to be corrected on that if I am mistaken, but who has given permission for any development on our beautiful sites? There are so many units on the existing industrial estates that are empty. Have they been considered, and why are they still empty? What is the need for more industrial buildings to go up? Why? I see at Mamilard on the old ICI club site, they have put huge units up there. I don't know whether anyone's noticed from the road at Mamilard, but there are huge units on that site that was the old club ICI site. They've all gone up. And Lantarnum, Teacoke Industrial Estate, Springvale Industrial Estate. I've driven around. There's lots and lots of empty units. Why is there need for more? I don't understand.
And one of the things that I think could be potentially taken into consideration and hasn't as yet is when we come out of lockdown, the amount of businesses that will potentially be running differently. So we'll continue to have people working from home, won't necessarily go back to using their buildings. So those buildings will stay derelict. We're not even out of the other side of the pandemic to actually realize to realize that the potential of that actually happening. Now, my apologies, I can see that people are actually apparently people are waving their hands, but I need to go to the next screen just to say Chris Roberts, good afternoon, sir. Oh, so you're still muted. There we go.
There we go. Hi, I'm Chris Roberts. I'm an ecologist by trade, and I used to work for Torfaen Council 12 years, and I know quite a lot about sites' importance for nature conservation and a lot of green infrastructure and wildlife in Torfaen. I just wanted to start off by commending everybody because this is a brilliant group. I've never seen anything like it, and I think there should be done a lot more for the rest of the groups that are forming around Torfaen, because they've got issues with what's being proposed for these sites. So I think you've done great, Gruff. You've been brilliant in bringing it all together as well. And I just think it's really good. So you should all be patting on yourselves on the back. From my point of view, though, I think the site is a strategic site for biodiversity gain for Torfaen. It's also a strategic site for climate change adaptation, you know, because we haven't got any, Torfaen hasn't got any sites left because they're all being developed on. And these are big sites which, you know, could hold the key to river flooding and issues like that. So green infrastructure is a big issue at the moment. And I know Torfaen has got a strategy for green infrastructure too. And I don't know why they're dealing with the LDP as a single thing when you've got this green infrastructure strategy going on. Well, you know, have they assessed, you know, from a climate change adaptation point of view, biodiversity point of view, how important these sites are? And if they have, they would have found out that this is a strategic site for wildlife, definitely, which I'll be talking a bit more about later in my slot. But they would have, you know, they would have found out that Torfaen should have been able to buy that site. And I know they were trying for a while, but it was just too expensive for them to buy. And that is why it's going down this route, I think. But if we could buy it for people of Torfaen in terms of climate, a place to adapt, that we can put measures into place to adapt to climate change, it'd be brilliant, because the water's pouring off that site. It's going straight down into Cumran Park and the Boating Lake. and it's wiping out all the banks, which the countryside team in Torfaen has put so much money into the funding to do stuff down there, to allow people to access it, to allow people to enjoy it more. And it's all just getting blown away by all this flood water. So I know there's a lot of businesses getting flooded, houses getting flooded. So it's a problem. And I think that education is a means forward with this, because the councillors who make the decisions really need to know about these issues and how to make positive changes within the county to deal with them, and not just leave it, you know, and hope that it gets better. When you've got a site like this, which is strategic, might be owned by somebody else, but if you get hold of it, you could have a lot of gains, you know, in other areas. So that's what I want to say. Mental health is a huge thing at the moment, and there's not enough green spaces in Torfaen as it is to cope with everybody getting out there, walking their dogs. They've got, you know, dogs got to have exercise too. There's litter, dogs mess everywhere. There's issues, and we need more maintenance, you know, around those areas to cope with all, you know, the influx of all these people. So there's loads of new issues that we need to, you know, deal with and grapple with, especially in these times. And, you know, we need to get our voice heard. So I'll leave it there.
Can I ask you, with regards to an environmental sort of the impact assessments that need to take place, are you aware how often they need to be kind of updated? Because when I asked who our sort of ecological officer was in the area, I was told, I don't know, because they change so many times. So are you
even? I've been talking to him. He's been in touch with me. He was off for a few weeks, but when I spoke to him, his concern wasn't technically about saving anything. His only, I believe it was just to acknowledge to the council what was there, and then the council have to decide how to go around it, which is what the problem is. When I spoke to the Welsh Assembly government about it, they put it back on the council, saying it's because they have to have a development plan. So they're going from one to the other. The council are blaming the government are blaming the council. And that's what the problem is. There's no clear system. And unless we get someone, like I said, unless we get someone in power who cares about our environment and says and does what they say, i.e. preserve the environment, expand our woodlands and become greener, we're not going to get any far, which is why, like I said, we need people in power who care. Unfortunately.
I agree. And I was seconded for a year when I was working in Torfaen. I finished in 2014, so it's a while back now. And I actually worked in the forward planning team, picking the candidate sites and making sure that biodiversity had a voice. And that was my prime job. I was the one who went around surveying these sites and designating them as sites of importance for nature conservation. That was before 2014. Ecology information is out of date within 2 years. So, you know, if they haven't had any up-to-date surveys, especially after taking down all those trees, I pointed out on the Facebook group that, you know, all those trees were taken down and they were like bat roosts within them. So if they haven't had any surveys to inform that work, and I got a feeling it's Natural Resources Wales and the landowner, because they have woodland grant schemes for these things. So I want to get to the bottom of that.
And we were originally told that it was because of ash dieback. But if I show you,
they took out all the conifers. I went there yesterday. They took out all the conifers. So
that's what I went and took the picture of yesterday.
And everything in between,
except
the oaks. There's a few nice oaks left, some of the older oaks. Regenerate the whole, you know, broadleaf woodland up there. So I think that.
Where's that photo from? Sorry.
That's just as you go through the circus field and you go through the next field. If you keep on, the rest of the land is like this.
That is absolutely disgusting.
And one of the concerns for me is how many people in Cumbraen are actually not aware that that is actually taking place, because they're kind of working backwards in the most inaccessible part of it. So people in Cwmbran are just not going to be aware of this. Simon, I know that you were keen to interject. Do you want to have your say with regards to the ecological side of things? I know you were keen to speak.
Yeah, thanks, Susie. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can indeed, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to put something in perspective. We've seen it in a very local point of view. The land that's behind you, the picture behind you, is actually planted for harvesting anyway. It's large. And there's a big program across the whole of Wales to get rid of a lot of the Eurasian and Japanese larch because of disease, and it was planted for harvesting anyway. My point is the flooding and that aspect of it is not a local thing. Also the wildlife aspect of it. I'm a representative, if you like, but I've got a license for many species of Schedule 1 birds, mainly birds of prey in Wales, and I pass information on to British Trust for Ornithology, Natural Resources Wales, and a number of other organisations. My concern is mainly the fact that so many species have suffered in the general area of Cwmbran, not just Cross y Ceiliog. I know my in-laws live just below the site. I'm not going to go into detail on here, but I will put it on the group page with the figures and things I've discovered. The flooding isn't just about development in the locale. It's about the head of the river as well. We've got a massive problem with damage to moorland where the Avon fluid is sourced, which is above Blaenavon at Warnavon Bog. There's a lot of damage to moorland from 4x4s and motorbikes and stuff, and this all builds up into a narrow spate river which travels downstream. Spate River because it dropped a lot of altitude in a short time. So you can have a small stream turn into a massive flood within hours. The problem is the flood prevention we've got was first developed in the 80s. And I expect a lot of you who know me around that time when we used to see the old bulldozer going down a river and cleaning out the channel, but it's not up to the rainfall we have at the moment. As far as the effect on wildlife is concerned, especially species I monitor, I will put on the page rather than take up people's time tonight. But we haven't seen the flooding that we've had over the last 2 years since the mid-90s the last time, and definitely in the late 70s and 80s. So I'll leave it on that note. I'll put everything on the page. But my other concern is we can't keep blaming people moving into the area. People are going to keep moving into the area because they're getting outpriced.
Oh, I think you've just muted yourself. Oops. Simon, you've just muted yourself. Guys, can't hear me. Oh no. Yeah, now you're unmuted.
I don't know who the hell that was ringing me there. But I'll put a post on the page. I've got to go in a minute, but there's some interesting information coming out. Thanks, Grufford, for the email. And I'll speak to you on the page if that's okay.
Fabulous. Thank you ever so much for that, Simon.
Thank Susie. Cheers.
Thank you. Can we move on now to talk about the pollution, environment and housing? Byron Hugh Weaver, are you there? Yes, you are indeed. I can see you if you want to just unmute yourself. There we go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can indeed. Hello.
Hello. Yeah, a lot of it's been gone over already. So I did write some stuff up off just from, from the heart more than anything. So I'm just going to read what I wrote.
Okay.
I'm a local resident, and it's obvious that the air quality is worsening. People, cars, roads. The A4042 cut through fields in the first place creates pollution also being trapped within the road itself. The road is already at bursting point with traffic jams, accidents on a daily basis.
Yeah.
We were told weekend was okay years ago, and that quietly disappeared overnight. Now Insulation built a second chimney, and we are being told that the only thing coming out the chimney is steam. With other factory units pumping out more CO2, more units surely equals more pollution. Myself and my daughter are the first people in our family to have asthma living in the area after, you know, with Rechem and stuff being built. Trees are being felled all around Torfaen, so CO2 has nowhere to go and just enters the atmosphere for us all to breathe. 4 years ago, I moved on to Pettingale Road, where the rating for pollution was 4 out of 5. Recently, they've changed the method, and I checked yesterday, and we are now somehow 2 out of 6. And that's on, you can check that on the BBC website. Are we to become another crumbling hill with all being ordered to move out of our properties due to pollution being so bad? There was a recent chemical plant leak in New Industrial Estate, which is right next to the Avon Fluid. Look at the canals and rivers already full of rubbish with nowhere to go. Stonebridge Park has increased flooding, has increased the flooding of Avon Terrace, Bronthlis Place, and the industrial unit at Station Road. More housing will increase the flooding. Also, look at the canals on Bevans Lane and Gifford Close in 2 locks. Canals full of waste. Noise pollution. Increased traffic with industrial units and factories. You can already hear the noise due to the new hospital with sirens 24/7. And light pollution will affect the wildlife within the remaining woodlands and fields that do remain, affecting the remaining flora and fauna and their habitats, with artificial light harming their life cycles. I also wrote a bit about the housing being built, so sorry about this. As part of the plan S106, affordable housing is required, with over 3,000 houses to be built from Llanfrecford to Mamilod, all clustered within this 4 to 5 mile area. It is to become a commuter village, much of it to be built on greenbelt land which have public rights of way. Brownfield sites ignored, such as County Hall. These houses won't be affordable to those already living in the borough. They'll just be overflow from Bristol and Cardiff. As a commuter village, traffic and pollution will increase. These people won't cycle or walk to catch the train to work. We're not stupid. We all know the trains offer a poor service anyway. The infrastructure, roads and facilities are already under strain. Torfaen has no foresight when developing for the future. Just look at Cumbrae Drive and the industrial parks such as B&Q, which has ruined the Monmouth and Brecon Canal.
Absolutely.
When it's gone, it's gone. I've got a bit more, bear with me, a bit more. I've grown up and still adventure into Bluebell Wood and the surrounding areas. What will become of it if houses are built on it? A place of fly tipping, etc., such as the new developments already established. We are in a climate emergency and urgently need to reduce carbon emissions, including those created by the building of housing itself. Cumbrae in recent times has built many new houses, we will become just another concrete jungle. I do not believe Torfaen Council are adhering to the climate emergency design guide that has been put in place, and will just destroy what we have and increase the vermin around. The project at the lower end of Pontedrin shows that these houses are poorly built and are not within the price range of the average family or person. So affordable, it's not. And that's it. Thanks for being with that.
No, thank you very much. On your point with regards to Bluebell Wood apparently is protected, but my argument for that would be if it's protected now because of things like the wildlife and bats and owls, and also the bluebells themselves because they're native, what impact is the actual flooding running off that housing estate going to have on Bluebell Wood itself? It's all well and good saying, well, we won't build on that now, but when it becomes just when it's essentially ruined because of the flooding and, like you said, because of litter, and they have their right then to say, well, it was protected, but now it's not fit for purpose, so now we might as well just build on that. The other side of Bluebell Wood, where you've got the river that runs alongside the factory, you've already got that bank is continually corroding. So even on that side, we're going to get to the point that you can't even walk there either. So yes, there are so many concerns and so much to get through, but what I suppose what we're all trying to find out is there anything that we can do? Can we stand forward and say, you have to put a hold on this because of the situation that we're in right now? The neighbourhood themselves have not been given the right information. How many tests have actually been done? Probably illegally, because it's not actually representative of a normal situation, a normal working life. Hence the traffic actually being tested during the pandemic when nobody is on the road. So we need to find out if it is actually indeed, if we are able to actually come together potentially with the surrounding neighbourhoods who have got concerns about their own sites themselves, and actually come together as a collective, as thousands of us who essentially are living in a town that was built for 60,000 that's now got above 90,000, and potentially our land is just going to keep being taken away, and we're going to end up not with a new town, we're going to end up with Torfaen City.
Yeah, well, I noticed this week as well, Pontedrin House has gone up for sale. So it makes you wonder what they know that we don't. And that's gone up for sale, I think it's 480,000. So will that be compulsory purchased at some point? You just don't know.
And the fact that we have not been provided with information and have not been provided with the opportunity to actually stand and give our voice against this absolutely maddens me. We've got to move on because obviously we've got other people to talk to as well. Oh no, not well. Thank you for speaking. And also somebody had actually interjected and said there are needles currently being found in the canal.
Oh,
needles.
Well, yeah. You only have to just walk up the canal by Bevans Lane, and the people they live in these nice new houses, but it's sort of out of sight, out of mind. If my rubbish is in the canal, I can't see it. That kind of. And Bluebell Wood, that's my fear for Bluebell Wood. If this goes ahead anyway, it's just going to turn into a dumping ground.
And the runoff from the water. From the concrete itself, because at the moment those fields are waterlogged. It's not like they're bone dry.
Oh yeah, I went up there yesterday.
You can't go up there and think, oh, this is perfectly suitable ground, because like I said, you're knee deep in mud. So the water that's actually being held at the moment by the fields and by the trees, if those trees are gone, the fields are gone, that water has nowhere to go other than through Bluebell Wood into a river that is already burst in its banks and is already causing problems at the boating lake and along the Crossy walkway itself, down through the oasis and everything. Right, can we move on please to thank you by the way, can we please move on to Grant, who's got questions regarding the Circus Field site itself? Are you there, Grant? Hello? No, I can kind of hear you, but it's like you're speaking through a sock or something. I still can't. I don't know if anybody else can hear anything. Are you actually unmuted? And if you are unmuted, can you turn your microphone up? Or you might just have to text, and I'll say what you're texting, shall we say? Because none of us at the moment can actually hear you, unfortunately. That's a really interesting point that someone has just made. Hang on, let me just read that out a second. Further letters should have actually been sent out that include maps, and we shouldn't just be directed via internet links for the benefit of the people that do not actually have access to the internet. It doesn't feel like our older generation, for instance, it doesn't feel like they've been taken into consideration at all.
It might be worth noting that until we actually mentioned what was going on with Pontylan Fetzer, as soon as we started talking about it, 2 days later, we had a load of notices stuck to all the lampposts in the area, only when we mentioned it. So this proposal was put back in last March. We only found out about it in November. So nothing had been said. And then 2 days later, all these notices appeared, about 100 of them in 2 days.
Well, my first one I saw in February. And as you know, with all of these kind of posters that are put up, they're not really put there to attract you because of the way that the small, tiny writing that is actually used is very, very wordy. You have to kind of really stand still and go through the whole thing. But it should have been, regardless of whether it's wordy or not, it should have been, I think, as a council taxpayer, it should have been put through our letterbox for us to sit down and digest it, not hoping on the possibility of, well, how many people are actually going to pass this lamppost that are actually going to come across it? Because there are lots of people that won't pass those lampposts and still now are not actually aware of what is happening in the area, not aware at all.
I mean, as shielders, sorry for talking. I mean, I've been shielding because of an illness I got. I haven't seen these lampposts. I live in Crossy Kellogg. I don't live far from the Circus field, and I've had no letter. And my neighbours are all in their 80s, and I can say that more than likely they haven't either.
No, absolutely. And I think this is the thing that we're all feeling at the moment, and it's one of the reasons that it's a heated discussion, and could be even more heated if we had more people on board. Is that it feels like that we're essentially all finding out about this so late that we're all having to come together and challenge something that we shouldn't have had to have challenged in the beginning, when it could have been presented to us and we could have put forward a decent argument at that point. Can I just invite MP David Davis in, please, because he'd like to just give us some information about how we can actually go about challenging this. Can I welcome you, Mr. Davis?
Oh, thank you very much, Susie. I hope you can hear me all right. I've had to keep the video off because I'm on my way to London at the moment. So
no problem at all.
Okay. Look, I thought there were a lot of very good points made there. And obviously, I'm only speaking to the part that's in Monmouthshire, which is the Monmouth constituency, which is the Llanfechfren, not the Circus field. So I entirely sympathise with what people are saying there, but it's for the local MP and representatives to take that up. But on the general point of what could be done, I mean, first of all, obviously with the pandemic, the consultation won't have reached people, and I think that's challengeable. I think secondly, excellent point made earlier on by a lady about the impact of this pandemic on young people and mental health, and which I absolutely concur with. And I'm just wondering whether it'd be worth writing to the Children's Commissioner Wales as well about this. And finally, I think this might even be challengeable under the Future Generations Act, Welsh Government. So I think in the first instance, obviously you're all spot on, which is to challenge the council about this. There's a challenge on the numbers as well, because that is going to change Cwmbran, that number of people coming in. And as another gentleman rightly said, right, is that what is the council's estimation of the local demand for housing and jobs as opposed to the general demand if they go and build them? Because I think that gentleman earlier was right. I mean, this is obviously going to mainly, well, I don't know this week, I haven't got the evidence, but I would suspect a lot of people will move into the area, except there's a space for that. But this isn't really about building for local demand, I wouldn't have thought. And I think that's something that really needs to be, I would be putting in freedom of information requests to say, what is Torfaen Council's estimate of the local demand, the demand within the borough, for housing over the next 10 years. So I hope that's helpful. Obviously,
Absolutely.
I wouldn't presume to speak about the Circus field, which is not my constituency, but on the Smecford point, yes, I'll be talking to Hugh later on about that. So thank you very much indeed. I have to go in a few minutes, but thank you so much. And also, you're a brilliant chair, if I may say. So it's not easy to chair these things. So
well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Well, it was lovely to talk to you, and thank you for taking time out of your day.
Not at all. You should have a job as a radio presenter. I think you should be on the radio.
I actually do have a show.
Oh.
You should come on and talk to me sometime. It's on SW20 Radio. There we go. I've put a little
brilliant.
plug in.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Lovely
you.
to talk to you. Take
Cheers.
care. Bye
Cheers
bye.
now.
Well, that's really interesting, actually. I've written that down. So in terms of being able to get some information, because I do think it's definitely being sold as affordable housing, and it's also being sold as well. I was told there are children having to live with their grandparents right now because there are no houses available. But I'm absolutely positive that the houses that are going to cost £230,000 plus are not being aimed at these particular children.
Yeah.
Right? Can we before I move on, I know that I can see that Jane and Elizabeth, have you I can see a little yellow hand button. Actually, there's lots of little yellow hand buttons. Also Charlotte, you've got a little hand button as well. Can you interject a bit there?
Hey, yeah, it was only very quickly on the housing. Obviously, the ones on Bevers Lane are still being added to, and a lot not even housed at the moment. And actually, I've got a friend that's in the first stage of that development, and the road isn't even finished there. But also, I put the petition on Griffithstown past and present residents, and the only backlash we had was something about, oh, we need housing and social housing, and several people said that Churchwood, but the plot behind the one stop, there's several empty houses there, and actually they are meant for social housing and they're not even filled.
Oh. Well, that just tells you everything.
I know, obviously, that's classes Pontypool, not Cumbran, and you know, people have a different want for different postcodes. However,
if the housing need is there, then you'd assume that the houses that are empty would be filled.
Exactly, but I thought that was a really good point, because I hadn't seen them up for sale or anything, and they said no, actually they are for social, but basically they can't be bothered to finish the work, I think, or I'm not sure.
Martin has just commented on what you said, Charlotte. Martin Painter Sims, and he said you only have to walk past the houses by the one stop, and most of them are empty.
Yeah, those are the ones that I was referring to. Absolutely ridiculous, and obviously the ones up on Bevans Lane, well, they're just getting added to daily at the moment.
Yep, and you can see the fields as well are still being stripped behind those new houses. So the mountain is essentially disappearing.
Yeah, and I just feel so. I mean, I don't know if this is a point or anything, and this might be a bit biased or anything, but obviously those at Chapel Lane and those behind Bevans Lane, those are people's happily ever after homes. And, you know, the amount of people and the amount of traffic, people have moved there for a purpose. Whereas with all this added, I was actually involved in a car accident a few years ago on Chapel Lane at peak time, because somebody couldn't be bothered to wait in the traffic, so reversed into me to turn his car around in the road. And I just think it's absolutely bonkers that they're thinking about that. I know obviously that might be a personal preference in where people want to live, however, that has got an impact.
And Chapel Lane itself obviously comes directly off the roundabout where the circus fields are. So when people are going to try and cut that roundabout, and they're going to look ahead and see the traffic that's already you've been waiting in for half an hour, they're going to come straight down Chapel Lane, which is already not built for the purpose during a normal working time, not with the excess houses that we're going to have built there. So they'll end up being more accidents. I mean, I know it's been discussed in terms of being able to put a white line for pedestrians, but the width of the road itself is not sufficient to be able to cope with two-way traffic and people walking on a supposedly imaginary pathway.
Exactly, and nothing can be done with the width of the road because that's protected and there's housing on the other side. So
exactly.
Yeah.
I've spoken.
Exactly.
I've spoken to. Am I unmuted? I've spoken to the transport people, and they absolutely categorically are not going to widen that road. It's going to remain a two-way thoroughfare, and they cannot widen it. There won't be a pavement. They can't do anything to the road to cope with any additional traffic. Living on Bringoma, we can't even get off the road half the time with the traffic going up and down. That's now.
And it's and as you say, I mean, that's now, and it's not even when
Well,
we're all
yeah.
back out there again.
Exactly.
I think somebody wanted to interject then, because I could hear somebody's mic come off. No. Hang on, let me just if I need to, I'll go over to the next screen just to check in case anybody's like this, waving at me like crazy. No, nobody's waving at me like crazy. So we'll carry on. But so Helen, with regards to what you said about the traffic, how do they envisage having a permanent white line there then, if it already is a little bit squeezed?
Apparently, even though, I mean, I live there and there is very little pedestrian traffic on there at all, there have been some complaints, and they want to increase pedestrian feeling of welfare, feeling of safety. So the idea is that people will walk within this white line. The drivers who bomb up and down there are supposed to see this, and then they'll decide whether it's successful or not. But he couldn't actually tell me what the criteria was for assessing that. I think the point is that the only way I could ever see that they could develop the Circus field and the traffic would cope is if they made Chapel Lane into a one-way road, but they can't do that apparently because it's absolutely fundamental to the traffic flow in this part of Torfaen. So it's just not going to work. It's not, I mean, an entrance onto an industrial area, plus probably a housing area, in between two roundabouts, coming off the A4042, and the only other way to go is really Chapel Lane. It's going to be absolutely snarled up. And the other point is really, if it's going to be a mixed development, surely there'd have to be two entrances and exits. You can't drive through an industrial area.
Exactly.
From a housing estate. You can't drive to your house through an industrial estate. You know, there's going to have to be two. So where is the other one going to be? How are they going to do that?
And given that already at the end of the A4042, when you get to turn right at New Inn, they've had to change the road system there in order to cope with too much traffic already, put in an additional 2,000-3,000 cars on top of that. It makes you wonder if it has actually been considered, or if what is generally being considered is pound signs.
Well, I know people who've changed their job specifically so they don't have to drive through the sort of Cwmbran to New Inn traffic every day. They go from New Inn and go the other way rather than come back to Cwmbran or through Cwmbran, because the traffic system already doesn't cope.
Unfortunately, I think the answer is they're probably not going to do anything, because there's been a massive development, not in Torfaen, just down the road from me, because Pontier is the end of Torfaen. The start of Newport Felin has had a massive development for 900 houses. It's a one-way system. They have massive bulldozers, cement mixers, and there's going to be no input of another road, no help to the traffic system, pavements like that. They're not doing anything to help the traffic or congestion. It's one of the worst polluted areas in Newport as well. They're not doing anything. So any development that Torfaen will put through, they're not going to put any new roads. They might not even put any extra schools in, because they'll say, well, we put the houses, we got no space. So
actually, yeah, could I add to Amy's point? Is this okay for me to jump in?
Certainly. Who are we saying hello to, so we know?
It's Elizabeth Peed here.
Hello, hi.
Hi. I really do wish my grandmother was alive, Margaret Peed. She was on the planning, and she was part of the council, and she would be devastated about the thought of what's going to be ruined if we don't do something. And I mean, obviously my fear is really for the Lamprecht area, but also the Circus fields, and especially if you take both of them into account at the same time, the amount of houses that will just saturate this area is just going to turn it into a city rather than the beautiful countryside that we know it is. And the Welsh Assembly government last September put in a new charter that's supposed to put quality, sustainability and community at the heart of planning. And I don't think that that's been done at all. And obviously, I mean, you could go on and on and on, but the destruction of wildlife, biodiversity, the flooding that we were, our road, I mean, I'm sure you've gone down the B4236, all the way past the gate, and we've got a 40-mile-an-hour limit on the bit past the gate, which the police will not turn into a 30. We have petitioned for that, and my nan spent most of her life trying to petition for that, and it never, ever changed. And they're on about, putting in a B4236 relief road, but we've had no information on that bit either. We've had no indication of what that might be. And I mean, it's not that we're opposing every single thing that they want, because, the Medipark, for example, right by the hospital, might be absolutely fantastic, but 1,200 houses, a hotel, a conference centre, not, and then obviously on the other side of the A4042, the houses on the Circus fields, it's just going to saturate the area. And with Amy just saying the Clean site that they've just passed through, and we're seeing lorries coming up and down here already in the pollution. It's deeply worrying. And I guess I'm just proposing that we kind of band together as communities to tackle them both at the same time, because they feed into one another.
Absolutely.
They feed into one another in the sense that we only live a stone's throw away from the Circus fields, and all of it is going to have an impact on each other. It's not just the separate sites. And what really has upset me is I do feel like Torfaen has gotten this under the radar. They're using, I personally feel like they're using the pandemic as an excuse to not tell us everything about what they want them to do.
And it feels like things are being fed through now, because we're essentially causing a stir, because we're kicking up a fuss.
Absolutely. And the lamppost signs are far more detailed than what we were actually sent in the post. The what we were sent in the post, and we've got neighbours who are 90 years old. They won't have the internet. And David, who was actually born in the gate, he won't have internet. It's just devastating, really. And it's so good that we can try and come together with the use of, I know Amy put together the fantastic petition, and there's another petition going around. If we can just work together to try and stop it.
The question is, how is it going to be possible for us to kind of put things on a hold, or at least argue the fact that things shouldn't move forward at the moment, because it's unrealistic given the situation that we're all in, and we should be able to get to the stage where we're almost seen to be fully back at work, so they can look at how the pandemic has affected businesses, to find out if those businesses that have got currently empty properties will actually be used again before even discussing about taking away green land.
Exactly. And you can't take an accurate estimation of traffic. You can't do it for the last year.
No,
you can't
exactly.
take an accurate, you cannot take readings for pollution, for traffic, for flooding. You can't do it, because the way that we've lived our lives has been so dramatically changed. And I mean, I go back to the Mental Health Act, and the fact that the only thing that we've been able to do is go out in the greenery and walk our dogs and get a bit of fresh air. And now more than ever, that is just so important. And the fact that they want to rip away it's just devastating.
If places like the boating lake become impassable because of the flooding that's already taken place, so a lot of us have been using the fields behind me, if that's then taken away, where are we supposed to walk?
Yeah, absolutely.
If we're in this situation again where we're told you cannot drive to exercise, you need to walk from your house, well, you need to leave us land to walk on then. Exactly.
And it's just, obviously just, it's going to make it all one city, and that's not what it's not what Torfaen is about. It's not what Cossaceiliog is about, and it's not what Lanfrecvre is about, and Pontier, and all the way down into neighbouring Newport Clean. It's not. We don't want to be one. It's nice that we've got the green area around us.
Yeah,
it's important for for our mental health. And
For those that haven't necessarily seen the chat, we've had a message from Hales DK to everyone. For the info of everyone, I have been in contact with Vic Warren from CPRW, which is Campaign for Protection of Rural Wales, and he has shown support for objections for the strategic sites and has a lot of experience with planning objections in Torfaen specifically. I have had a number of discussions with him, and he will be updated with regards to this meeting, which is fantastic. Somebody just said sorry. Laura Jones has said, please, can I come in a minute, because I've got to go to works. So Laura, are you there?
Yes, sorry, thank you,
Yes,
Susie.
hello, that's all right, no problem.
Thanks for letting me come in now. Yes, I'm Laura Ann Jones. I'm the member of the Senedd, member of the Welsh Parliament for South Wales East. So obviously this is my patch, just to let everyone know who I am. What David said is bang on. And I'll go into that in a minute. But firstly, I just wanted to take this opportunity to say what a fantastic meeting this is, and you have chaired it unbelievably. We could do with you in the Senedd quite often. You're excellent. You're dealing with everyone with everything very well, and there have been such good contributions. I don't know if you've all seen me on the screen. I've been scribbling so many notes because of the excellent contributions. I mean, they really have been brilliant. So I mean, there's so much to go on and to fight because of all the excellent input you've had tonight. So I think you've got every chance of stopping this. Just to say, I'm Shadow Minister for Local Government and Housing. And I've got spokesman's questions this week, as it happens. It's a busy week for me. So on Wednesday, I will use the opportunity that I have spokesperson's questions to bring these points to the fore. And hopefully then, with the Minister's rebuttal, that will then add to your fight and add to the pressure on Torfaen Council then to respond. So I hope that will be of some use. As David said, I will bring in the Future Generations Act and the Children's Commissioner as well. I also sit on the Education Committee, so I'll write to her and speak to her about it as well. They're all really, really valid points. I don't think it's fit for purpose myself. I do not think building on greenfield sites is needed, it's necessary, and just I'm 100% on your side on this one. So just to let you know, you've got a lot of people fighting your corner where it's needed.
Well, that fills us full of hope, I can tell you.
Across party too, which is great to see, I have to say. Yeah, there are so many reasons which have all been mentioned. I don't want to go over them that you've mentioned tonight, but they are really, really good, valid points as well, and particularly that the integrated sustainability assessment, as Alan Slade said earlier, has been done, and it's just negative on all the things that matter. So they haven't really got a leg to stand on here. So well done. There's plenty of opportunity, as David said, to already, this fight can be won still. I mean, there's plenty of opportunity to input into the proceedings at the moment. So go for it. I can't believe there's so many of you so spirited as well. It's absolutely brilliant to see. It's made me sort of riled up myself to go at the Minister on Wednesday about it, to be honest. So congratulations, every single one of you, for being on here and all that you're doing and for coming on. It's brilliant. This is the way things are done. The way things should be done. So carry on, and anything I can do, just let me know. But I'll do what I said to start with, and we'll see how we go with that.
Fantastic. Well, from all of us, thank you. Your words have obviously given us a glimmer of hope in a dark time.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, and you too. Bye-bye. Okay, fantastic. Can we move over to Chris Roberts, please, who would like to talk about the felling of woodland? Are you there, Chris?
Oh dear, is it me already? Yeah, I'm here.
It is. Hi again.
Hi. Sorry, I'm back. But I just wanted, before I go on to the woodlands, I just wanted to sort of say something about brownfield sites and greenfield sites in Torfaen. Some of the things I might be saying might be a bit controversial, so sorry about that. But obviously this is a greenfield site we're talking about in Felin, and something which lets it down is that it's not biodiversity rich, the fields, and haven't got lots of wildflowers. So, but it's agriculturally important, the fields. The thing is that the brownfield sites and greenfield sites in Torfaen are pretty much owned by the same person, the same landowner, and a lot of the sites, the contaminated sites, which are the brownfield sites, would take a lot of money to reinstate them back to to stop them from leaching whatever the industry was first into the stream. So we've got a massive problem with that, with the brownfield sites.
Presumably not all the brownfield sites, though.
Not all of them, no, but a fair proportion of them. And that's some of the issue with developers taking them on, because they have to pay so many thousands first to reinstate the site before they're fit to be developed by people. And a lot of the sites have got coal into them, so developers might want to take the coal out from under them to pay for the actual development of the houses. So you've got all these issues going on. Some brownfield sites haven't got much on, and then they haven't got much value in terms of ecology, but a lot of them have. And the one north of Torfaen, I think that one of our councillors was saying earlier about the British, I think it was, that's full of locally important species which we don't find anywhere else. In terms of ecology, it's brilliant. And there's an issue there with coal underneath it. The developers that I've sort of had experience with on that site have wanted to take the coal out first to fund the houses. So there's an issue there, obviously, with the coal town, because obviously we don't want that with our climate change targets. So lots of things there's been lots of barriers trying to get that through the local development plan for years and years and years. And there's been a community support to actually reinstate that site, because there's been deaths, people falling down the adits into the ponds and all that sort of thing. So it's all been a constant struggle. But from my point of view, from an ecology point of view, it's the jewel in the crown of Torfaen. It might be a brownfield site, but it's just regenerated with a lot of the species we don't have anywhere else. So in terms of our assets in ecology, that's one of the best. So whatever happens up there, not avert to housing going on there, but it has to consider the ecology around it. And that's the same for this site. It takes me on to this site where I haven't been on the group that long, and to be honest with you, I try and stay out of the LDP issues these days, because it is, if you're passionate about these things, it does have an effect on you. But if you're involved, you mustn't let it have an effect on you. In terms of mental health, you've got to be strong. And I know that people get really affected by these things. And I've known people over the years that put their whole heart and soul into these things, trying to protect these sites. And they haven't really got very far with it, because there's always people trying to put down that passion, trying to put your fire out. But you've got to keep, you've got so many people around you in this group that you've got to keep that fire burning. And I think that you're doing really well. But from an ecology point again, my issue is with protected species. Like over the years, I've put otter holts inside of the banks along Knauf in partnership with Knauf Installation. Did surveys in Knauf for bats, found less horseshoes actually in the factory. So they had to build a nice bat building right on the bottom of Chapel Lane. You might not have seen it because it's shrouded in hedgerows to connect it up with Felin woodlands. But it is there. I don't know if it's been surveyed or whatever, but that was for a species called lesser horseshoe bats, which are an Annex 2 species, which needs corridors to fly down. And, it's right next to the river, it's perfect. And that's why these woodlands are so important for bats. Otters as well, because they're right by the woodland, it's on a bit of an oxbow. And these wet woodlands are really important in Torfaen. They're dying out. It's not just an ancient woodland, but it's a wet woodland, which is even more important than an ancient woodland. And I know you're all passionate about the bluebells and everything, and the work done now, they'll be everywhere. With those conifers taken down, they'll be everywhere. But my point is, when I went on the site yesterday, the trees have been taken down around big oak trees with bat roots in, and I even found bat droppings at the bottom of one of them, which concerns me because this is already in the planning domain. The site has been significantly changed. So how can you, as a community group, know what value it is for ecology now that those trees have been taken away?
Absolutely.
Has a survey been done? And if it hasn't, it should have done what's called an appropriate assessment should have been done. And that is under the European directive that you've got to do if you're anywhere near lesser horseshoe bats. We know there's a big roost in Pontypool, just up the river. There's one in Knauf, and then it all ties up to the one down in Llantarnam Mill. And then Llantarnam Abbey. You've got these jewels all the way down the river. And they should have done an appropriate assessment and a bat survey on those woodlands first before they took those trees down. What that means for development is still in early stages, and they're still discussing whether or not to put this through. But that's significantly changed. But
can I just jump in very quickly, because I asked that question about the impact assessment. I was told that it had been done. I wasn't told when it was done, but I was essentially told, because I asked about the question about bats, because I've got a little bat monitor myself that I can walk around with, and it tells me, you know, which ones are out and about. And I asked the question about bats, and essentially was given this as an answer, which I thought was appalling. If we find out that there are bats within the area, bat houses will just be put up.
oh well, that's inadequate, totally inadequate. They're a protected species.
And what about the food for the bats? We're not going to go and suddenly start having to hand feed them. They need the insects, and the insects need the wildlife or the wildflowers.
And they need these green fields
it's all
to fly around.
connected. Absolutely.
This is what the lead ecologist, Stevie, told me. He's able to provide Torfaen Council with information about what trees and species are there that are protected, and then it's up to the council to find a loophole around it in order to build on that site. So in other words, you acknowledge they're there, but you don't actually have to do anything about it, because you can keep it there and you build around it. So that's the idea about what they're doing. And one of them actually said, you've had it too good for too long.
Who said that?
I'm not sure. It was a quote. This was about 10 years ago when they first started. So that's happening basically. They're finding loopholes. They're finding ways around it. Listed buildings, protected species. They'll keep them there and then they'll just go around it, which is what they always do. So you can't complain really, because they're still there. But then again, how much longer? Because they'll have nothing to feed on and it'll be gone anyway. You've got listed buildings. There's one gentleman in Lanfeck who's got an order that says you can't build anywhere on his house, but a lot of those are actually lost. And if the house is passed down to sons and daughters, they'll then sell it. So the original owner wouldn't want it to be built on, and they got a legislation saying you can't build. When it's passed down, the future generations might decide to get rid of it for development. So there's loopholes around everything. That's the problem.
We still have to fight it, though. I mean, I know that you're saying that they'll find ways around, but I think provided we're able to continually bash them with information and with regards to coming back to the kind of the health and the well-being of our future generations. This is not just about fighting for the elderly generation that have been given no voice at all because they haven't even been told about this. This is not necessarily a fighting for people of my generation, but it's fighting for people like my son, who I took up the field when he's told he can't go and play with his friends down the boating lake or whatever. So we take him out every day to ensure that he gets fresh air, and we stood at the edge of that, and then we looked at the devastation that had taken place, and he just stood there and said, why do they have to do this? This is not about providing houses that people are crying out for if we've got empty properties within the area already.
I agree.
All my life, I'm 53 years. This is my parents' house that I live in. I was born in the bed with my sleeping. So it's like all our land is just going, isn't it? From when I was little. Our poor children have got no chance.
Go on, Chris, you were going to say something then.
Yeah, well, the point I wanted to make is to give you the heads up, really, because getting back on the bat thing, if you had a survey before those trees were taken down, you would have had a lot of dark living species. There's loads of bats in Torfaen, a lot of different bat species. And you'll have the dark living species, which are the more rare species, they would have been using those woods. But now the trees have been taken down and the light's getting in. It's great for the bluebells, but for these dark loving species that would have been there, they might not, they probably would have gone now. So if they did have a survey now, what you're getting is less value for that site, if you know what I mean, because the good species. So if you think that if you add those species, you might get half the site next to the woodland all the way down and be able to have a really nice, accessible, managed wetland maybe, or something to catch all that water coming down. And you could have had the rest of the site for the reduced amount of houses and industry.
Sure.
But
Jane, I'll pass over to you. Sorry, Chris, I was aware I interrupted you then. My apologies. You said an and then I went, Jane!
That's okay.
So sorry, carry on.
The thing is, you know, in my experience, we had an issue up in Bevans Lane, South Spaspel, with the same landowner before the actual development was going ahead. It was still at this stage. It was further on. There was a master plan. There was whole sort of housing designs and everything in it. And we had a little bit of wet woodland, a little triangle on Bevans Lane, which had otters, white-clawed crayfish. You know, the whole site had about 14 protected species on it. And the survey work for the master plan had in there that there was a bat picked up called Barbastelle. Now, this is a really rare bat. There's 500 individuals at the time known to be in Wales. It was that rare, and we needed to find out more about it. Once that came out, landowner got someone in there with a JCB, wiped out that whole woodland before anyone could blink an eye. You know, Fight the Plan group at the time was, and Friends of the Earth were up in arms, loads of phone calls everywhere, what's going on? I had to go up there and stop the driver, all that sort of thing. And it'd gone, but it was in the master plan that they were going to protect it, they were going to have a management plan to expand it, but he knew that, probably knew, how important this woodland was, and he wanted more land for houses and everything. You know, there's these things that happen. And if it was NRW that, you know, would work with the landowner to get these trees down in preparation for development or anything like that, it's a bit of an issue because it seems to tie up and it's devalued the site, if you ask me, the ecology of the site. And, you know, I don't know how we can get it back. So we need to find more about the ecology of the site. You know, hedgerows are brilliant. We all knew that. For nesting birds, species-rich hedgerows, you've got a bit down the bottom, which is a bit more rough grassland. So reptiles like grass snakes, slow worms, common lizard. There's otters down the bottom. We don't know what bats are in there. We don't know what the owls and the bird species which are using the woodland and the hedgerows. You know, for you to make an informed decision on whether you think that this development should go ahead, you really need to know what's there, because it can help you get what you need to do, or it can get them to redo their surveys on up to date, get some up to date information on the ecology that's there. See what bats are using those trees that are left standing. See if there's, because that's the value of the ecology of that site is huge. And especially I need to touch on climate change again. It's a strategic site for managing water. It's pouring off there.
Yeah.
It's a strategic site. There's others as well, but they're owned by other people. But Torfaen really needs to put their hands in their pockets and, buy these sites and then turn them into something special, keep access open, for people as well as wildlife. And if we do that, I think we go in the right direction into the future and taking these new issues on board and showing other people as well, and other councils and other counties how to do it. So I support you all, and any questions, just Facebook me or whatever, message me. I'll try and answer them as much as I can.
You're going to be inundated with friend requests now, don't you?
Oh, I don't know if I'll be a friend. But,
we could just message you.
But yeah, I just want to help the group because, there's a bit of there's injustice in environmental stuff like this, and if you want a positive future with all this stuff, we need to change. And I think that you're doing really well, all of you.
We could be the change.
Exactly.
We could be the very town that stands up and shows everybody you don't have to have all of this, but you do need to come together, and you need to make your voice a bigger voice. Jane, you were going to step in there.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah, we're hearing a lot about they and them. They did this. They said that. They started this. They were cutting down the trees. Who are they?
That is an excellent question.
Because that's what we need to find out, because I haven't got the information. I haven't been on the group for very long. The first person we should go to is the team leader of ecology in the council, Steve Williams, who used to be my boss, which he should have all the information there, and any questions I'm sure he'd be able to answer them, because he is a decent officer. So
what's his name, sorry?
Steve Williams.
So you're saying that he's currently the Torfaen ecological officer?
He's a team.
Yeah, he's team leader of the ecology team.
So does that matter which, I don't want to make it political, but it is a political thing. Which party is he with?
Fine.
I don't think that he worries about party politics. It's all about saving biodiversity. So
it's independent.
Right.
No, can I just say that Steve Williams is the ecological officer. He's not in the political arena, isn't a councillor or an AM or an MP. He would step away from anything aimed politically at him, because that is not his bag. He shouldn't get involved.
He's impartial. He's impartial. So.
Yeah.
Susie, can I just come in very quickly, please? Because I'm going to have to leave the meeting shortly.
Yes, of course. Is it Hugh?
Yes, it's Councillor
Yes.
Hugh.
Hi. Hello.
Yeah. Thanks, Susie. Yeah, I've been listening with avid interest to all the points made, and I know that the main focus of the call today has been on the Circus field thing, but we've also expressed our concerns, exactly same concerns, over the site in Llanfrecffer and Pontier as well. I totally agree with what Chris has been saying in terms of the environment, the ecology. Torfaen is working on a green infrastructure plan, and it's not just the loss of localized ones. If we're looking at green infrastructure, Chris will be well aware of this, is connectivity as well of sites in the borough and maintaining the continuity of those sites. I'm enormously frustrated by what's going on with this, as a whole host of residents are and have expressed their views. We've got similar issues with flooding, inadequate drainage capacity, or I won't repeat all of the other objections that have been raised. But Torfaen have got a stated policy of trying to make the borough cleaner and greener, and I feel that what they're proposing under the local development plan is contrary to their ambitions. Torfaen Council has itself declared a climate change emergency and is supposed to be working towards being carbon neutral under Welsh Government guidelines by 2030, I believe. So again, how is all this house building, working towards making the borough cleaner and greener? How is it satisfying their own objectives under things like Future Generations Act, sustainability? I didn't want to politicize things, but questions were raised about other developments. The station was mentioned in particular. The thing is, I feel that we are, in a sense, as local councillors, our own powers are being eroded to a degree by Welsh Government. What we're seeing is the station has come forward as a result of a number of local authorities being in the Cardiff City regional deal. And to go beyond that, I know that the site in Lanfrac has been identified as a so-called strategic site, but Welsh Government are also seeking to put in place legislation for a strategic development plan. So that would be an overarching plan which would sit on top of the local development plans. Now it's being sold to us councillors as, oh, we're going to be it's going to be fully inclusive and we'll be part of the process. But aside from the leader of the council, us as elected members have got little or no input into that forum. It'll purely be the leader. Now, I didn't want to politicize this particularly, but I just wanted to make people aware of it. And before I have to leave the meeting, to try and come back to the point that you were making earlier about what can we all do about it, I think we need to ask questions of the executive in Torfaen about the ecology impact assessments, environmental assessments. I would urge everybody to respond to the revised local development plan now, whilst the public consultation is ongoing, and make sure that all of these objections are put in place. And if people can't do it via email, then send them a letter, put it in writing. The consultation is still open until the 26th of March. We do have a limited window of opportunity to have maximum impact, so that the more people that write to them, the more likely they're going to sit up and take note when they have to compile their reports back to Welsh Government and back to councillors. And finally, I would just say that I endorse the sentiments that have been expressed here, that oh, the final thing as well, they are currently consulting, the people mentioned trees. They are undertaking a public consultation on the tree policy as well at the moment. So I would urge everybody to respond to that public consultation as well. And then with that, I'm going to have to say goodbye to everybody, but thank you. It's been fascinating listening to everybody's comments today.
Well,
Thanks, Susie.
Thank you, Hugh. And if I can just say, Martin made a Martin Painter-Sims made a really interesting point and said the world has changed and will not go back to the way it was. The new normal will mean that we will need these green spaces, and even when COVID is hopefully a distant memory, I won't be surprised if there are not further lockdowns and other viruses. As most properties in Cwmbran have limited gardens, we need this own space for our mental health and our oxygen. Which is a very good point. I mean, the fact is the new properties that are popping up, as everybody is aware, have got kind of postage stamp size gardens. So in terms of, children having green spaces that they can play out in, they're not necessarily going to even be able to play in their own garden comfortably. So it's incredibly important that we fight this. Adrian Welding, can I invite you in, please, to talk about the brownfield sites? Right, we can't, even though you're unmuted, we can't hear you. So it might be that you just need to turn your mic up or on. Hello? Are you there? I'll ask you to sing a song in a minute. Get your guitar out. Yes, you're there now.
I'm there. I'm here now. What I was going to say is that there's Elizabeth Haynes and Jane Middle have had their hands up for most of the meeting, so I don't know whether you want to go to them first.
Sorry, what it is we're kind of looking at the questions that are down on the page, and it's quite difficult to kind of flit between screens. I know Elizabeth came in earlier on. Jane, is this something earlier on? If I missed you, my apologies. Would you like to say something now?
No, I'm fine. I'm absolutely fine.
Right, okay, no problem.
I think there's also a bit of a Elizabeth Keys came in earlier, not Elizabeth Haynes.
What, sorry?
Right.
All right, a different Elizabeth. It is difficult. It is tricky. My apologies. As I said, I'm used to just waving my arms around for people to sing, not necessarily to flip back and forth after someone's asked a question. Richard Whitaker, I can see that you've got a little yellow hand up as well.
Yeah, it's only going back on 2 points I brought up earlier, really. Someone mentioned about the traffic surveys done in the COVID period. For the development down Bevans Lane, they would have had to have done traffic management for that and future forecasts based on the size of the development. So when they do come back with their recent surveys saying what the number of vehicles are, can we, we've been in a position to challenge that based on the Bevans Lane development, because I'd imagine that's been within the last 2 or 3 years, so that would give a bit more clarity outside of COVID on those figures. And the second one I was going to pick up was people earlier mentioned they were from Pontier and Freckfa. One of the things we have got in common with them as well is Cwmbran, Pontier and Freckfa have got a common sewage system which goes down to Pontier wastewater treatment works. And probably under the Freedom of Information Act, we'd probably be asking for what the population equivalent is of Pontier wastewater treatment works in line with this new development, and also the number of pollutions they've had within the Avon fluid, and see if these combined developments are going to increase that with Welsh Waters not having the capacity to deal with these extra flows.
Sure, absolutely. And like you said, hopefully that kind of information would be provided to us. It's hard to know sometimes who to actually direct your questions to in order to actually obtain that information, given that we've been given so little already.
You could write the Welsh Water under the Freedom of Information Act and they'd have to provide.
That's a good point, actually. I know someone who works for Welsh Water as well, so.
I do as well, so.
All right, okay, brilliant. I'll leave that one with you then.
But, you could write the Welsh Water and ask to develop the services as well, and they would have to tell you what the capacity is and future growth plans are for Pontier, which most of the flows go to. And if it's a combined network of foul and storm, any additional flows would also lead to foul sewage discharges alongside surface water.
Interestingly, last summer, I don't know how it happened, but we at the top of Crossy, and we actually had raw sewage come up through our garden.
Yeah, don't blame me.
Burst pipes. No, I wasn't, I promise. So let me just flick over to the page just to see if anyone else has got a yellow hand up. No.
Yeah, I've still got mine up. I've still got mine up.
Yeah.
Who was that, sorry?
At the beginning of the meeting.
Elizabeth?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, yours is, it's not yellow anymore, because I think maybe because you spoke earlier, it maybe just went off.
No,
but
you can choose the colour of your hands.
Oh, I see. Why did I not know this? Well, that's brilliant. You learn something new every day. So thank you for that. So carry on, Elizabeth.
Okay, there's just a couple of things from the beginning of the meeting that I've been... Sorry, I should introduce myself. My name is Elizabeth Haynes. I'm elected councillor for Torfaen for St Dal's Ward. We've been through much of what you're going through with the former police training college 10, 11 years ago, where there was a proposal for a prison on the site there, and I headed the campaign to stop that. We stopped that, but it's since turned into a housing site. So from the beginning, there were a couple of comments made. I was very interested about the comment from the ward councillor that you, Chair, said she wasn't aware of this. The LDP has been discussed and talked about for quite a long time. And in fact, those people that have been in the political arena for a number of years would be very aware that the current LDP is for a fixed term and that they have to have another one in place in readiness for the expiry of the current one. Because the downside of not having a local development plan is that developments can be put in, or planning applications can be put in, and if there's not a current, or if there's not a local development plan in place, there are housing sites that can go ahead that would generally be outside of, they would have generally sat outside of the local development plan. It's always sort of been, you know, in my history, I've been a councillor for 12 years, it's always been the case that Welsh Government give local councils some indication of figures of houses or homes that they want developed in that area. And it's sort of a guidance that councils have to work to. The other thing is that somebody else has mentioned that now is the time really for people to be writing in to object to the council for the LDP. I love the fact that the petition was put in and who submitted that the other day, but that will just be viewed as one objection, not 800 objections. So every single letter that goes in needs to be from individuals is what I would suggest. And moving on from that stage, when it then goes one step further, is when the planning inspectorate gets the final, it goes in front of the planning inspectorate. The previous LDP did the same. I attended there and made representation. And I understand that you must have previously raised an objection to the LDP to be able to go and speak in front of the planning inspectorate. That's really important, because if you fail to make representation now, later on down the line when it gets to planning inspectorate stage, you will have missed your opportunity. Flooding, there's been a couple of comments about the flooding and sewerage capacity. My understanding is that it's been at capacity or over capacity for many, many years. I think Chris, I think, mentioned about purchasing the land. Is something you could potentially look into by forming some sort of charity or group and raising funds, maybe. And yes, Steve Williams is the ecology officer. He's been in post for a number of years. His role very much in the local development plan will be to put in his comments about any of the proposals. There are instances in planning committee and planning applications where many of the things that are said by both ecology, biodiversity, highways are overlooked and not taken into consideration. Well, they are taken into consideration, but not enough, in my opinion. So I think pretty much that's pretty much just a couple of things that I've picked up on throughout. But I think for me, the vitally important thing is to be getting the objections in as soon as you can before the 26th, so that when it gets to planning inspectorate stage, if there are 500 people that have objected as individuals, that's 500 people that could go and request to go and sit in front of the planning inspector.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Elizabeth. I think that's a really important point, and I didn't actually realise that it would be counted as one objection, regardless of how many people have actually put their name to paper. Sorry, I just had a message from Chris saying the ecology team is actually overworked. Aid, would you like to step in now with regards to the brownfield sites?
Yeah, I think Chris actually explained a little bit about the brownfield sites anyway, and I know a few other people have mentioned it. I mean, obviously, I was asking the same question: why are we using up, these valuable green spaces when there are so many brownfield sites throughout Torfaen, or throughout Wales, that are actually empty? We went through late 70s, 80s, building all these industrial estates, and I would imagine 50% of them are actually lying empty. So. And I think Chris explained it well by saying that developers prefer the green spaces because it's just like a fresh canvas for them, where there's like these brownfield sites have already got things in place that maybe are more difficult to develop on, really. So yeah, it's been explained about that part about it. So I've got other questions. As you know, I very often walk through Bluebell Woods and then follow the river round down underneath the dual carriageway down into New Inn. I've stayed away from the area, to be perfectly honest, since they cut all the trees down. My dog got injured on the. I mean, it's the terrible mess they've left there, and she did get injured, so I stayed away from the area. But I did go there last week, and already you can see the riverbank from more or less opposite the fiberglass works, it is already starting to erode quite badly there. I mean, I assume that's because of the number of trees that have been cut down now, and the water is now just running through. I don't know, but yeah, already there's erosion there. And as you say, those fields, going back a fortnight ago, it was difficult to actually walk through them. They were that sodden, you know. You were literally sort of walking on the fields and sinking down a couple of inches. So if they're holding that much water back already, surely once all that is given over to, whether it's industrial or housing, they're going to be putting the storm drains in, and that water is going to be going directly, you know, down into the river. So surely that's not going to help flooding matters.
No, absolutely.
And I know somebody asked a question about who the land was owned by. I'm not 100% sure, but when I did ask one of the local councillors about the trees that were being cut down on the Circus fields, on Bluebell Woods, I was told that it was Pontypool Park Estates that actually owned that. So I'm not sure whether they own all the Circus fields and the surrounding fields, because from what I've seen of it, it's not just, you know, the fields that we call the Circus fields, but as you go down the A4042 down towards the old Recam, the roundabout, the fields on the right hand side there as well. So it's literally all around that area. You know, it's not just the couple of fields we know as the Circus fields at the top. Yeah, it's a worry. And is there any way that we can all come together with all these different things that are going on? You know, obviously if we can fight it on a united front, we'd be better off rather than sticking to our own little groups, I think.
Absolutely.
Start a campaign, because the problem is, even if you purchase the land, if the council goes the Purchase Act, they can legally develop on the land anyway, whether you own it or not. One of the farmers has lost half his land, even though he didn't sell it. So I do believe that perhaps trying to actually start a campaign to change the development legislation is one of the ways we could work. Or preserving the land, like they've got Newport wetlands and nature reserves, preserving the land for it to be actually physically protected is another way. But apart from that, I was trying to think of ways down here, turning it into a national park, buying it, preserving it, and it's just, the only thing is that legal document that buys people out, the Compulsory Purchase Act, is happening in England as well. They're building a railway line and people are having to leave their houses because they've got no option. They take the money, because if they don't take it, they're out anyway. So it
can feel, in that respect, it can feel a bit like a lost cause. And obviously, because we're in a situation that we're locked down and we can't kind of necessarily take to the streets with it, or can we? We're in a situation where we feel kind of helpless. I would imagine that it would probably be easier to go down the route of, you know, whether it's looking at the mental health in the area for ourselves and our children. The ecology side of it is probably going to be an easier route than changing legislation, I would imagine, because that's, you know, you're entering a whole new domain there, which I think it would provide real problems. I mean, we've already seen, when you go on the Torfaen website, how wordy everything is and how complicated everything is made to look, purely for the reason of not wanting us to be able to get to the bottom of it and actually being able to understand what is actually taking place properly.
I think one other thing I'd like to bring up as well is there's quite a bit of misinformation around as well. You know, I mean, I've spoken to quite a few local residents about the Circus fields, and some of them were saying, oh well, that doesn't really matter because they're not going to start building it till 2030 anyway, and I'll be dead by then. And you know, yeah, exactly, but people need to be educated about what actually is happening. You know, yeah, there's a plan put in place to last until 2033 or whenever it is. Doesn't mean they're not going to build on it before that, you know.
I'm wondering if we could potentially get the Children's Commissioner involved and get the schools involved.
Yeah, that would be a good idea. I mean, I'm a member of Blind Brand Community Woodlands, and you know, they did a similar thing there. They bought the woodlands. There was I wasn't involved right at the beginning of it. I'm just a member there, but apparently there were quite a few people involved that were in the know, and you know, it took a lot of time and whatever to get that sorted out. I don't know whether we'd be able to do the same for Bluebell Woods, but you know, they've got like little areas there that the schools can go to and have their forest schools and things like that. You know, there's no reason why we can't do that in Bluebell Woods, but so maybe involving the schools, you know, would be a good idea.
I can see Jane has still got her hand up, but I don't want to bypass her and assume that she now doesn't have something to say, unless it's that her hand has just been left there from before. So Jane, was there something that you wanted to say here? Sorry, I can't hear you. No, you're kind of waving. I think you're waving to say, no, I'm good. No, she's fine. She's fine. Sorry, we've just had a message through from Martin as well, saying because of the flooding and the water runoff, playing fields are often unusable for children's sports teams. That's exactly right. The local sports team down the dike actually paid thousands to have it regrassed, and because of the flooding and because of the overspill from the river, for the first year it was actually unusable. So these are all, I think, really, really interesting points. We've kind of almost coming to the end, and I'm aware, obviously, everybody's, you know, got time to spend with your family and get ready, you know, for sitting on the computer for 48 hours to come. So I'm aware of everybody's time, but I think it would be nice now to kind of almost wrap up and to just find out if everybody has or anybody else has got anything that they would actually like to say, so you don't go away feeling frustrated and thinking, why didn't that woman see that my hand was waving crazily, to interject. So I'll just have a quick scan over the screen just to see if anybody has got anything else to add with regards to any further questions or any further points. Kerry. Hello, Kerry.
Well, I'd just like to say it's a no-brainer. They shouldn't build there. Or what everything everybody have said is just points to the fact that they should not build there. Leave it as it is.
Absolutely. The question is, how do we make that happen? Or how do we make it not happen, more to the point?
I think the thing is, where do we go from here? Well, obviously, we need some sort of team in place to take it on. You know, how do we go about that?
Exactly. I have no idea.
No.
I mean, it's what is lovely to see is obviously the amount of kind of, you know, passion and points that people have made just here, and then it makes you realise, well, actually, if everybody across Cumbrian was aware of this, you know, potentially it could be huge. Helen, you've always got your hand raised.
I only wanted to finish like the meeting by just saying how remarkable you've been this evening, Susie. It's been amazing.
Oh,
it's so well. We've got through so much material and we've had so much information. I just wanted to thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Can I say that I know Susie hasn't been too well. She's had a bit of a problem with her neck, and
I do.
You know,
I've got a trapped
hope you get
nerve.
it sorted.
Thank
you have done very well.
Hence you seeing me doing this all the time. My apologies. Oh, thank you, Aid. So I'm still trying to get across to my next page. I don't know why it's doing it. Usually it gives me a little arrow to direct me to say that I can go to the next page just to see if anybody is sat there and they still want to speak. What I could ask you to do is, would you like to, somebody called Rosa is just coming into the meeting. If you are on my next screen, and I'm not entirely sure if I can see you, but if you would like to speak now. Martin, you've got your hand up. We can't hear you. There we go.
I did put a point on the chat, but I think it's probably worthwhile. You can, I don't know if it's change.org, but you can put a template letter on websites, and basically then you get people to go and fill out their names, etc., etc., and then they get sent off to the respective place. And I think what it might be worth, speaking from Elizabeth's point, if we can go and raise a letter or an email through this kind of process, it'll mean that we all go and send an objection off, and we're all saying similar things, but at least then we've all had our say, because it sounds like the petition was great, but it's only one person really as a kind of representative for them. And I think that's something we could put together, and it should be something then hopefully we could have 1,000 letters rather than just one petition, if you like.
Or alternatively, this meeting is actually being recorded now. I could send all of you this meeting, and then you could just bombard, whether it's the local parliament, whether it's county council, senate, whomever, with the meeting, and say, please just take a couple of hours out of your time to just sit and listen to everybody's opinions, because it's quite hard, I think, to actually, unless we want to present them with a 40-page document, it's actually quite hard, I think, to put all of the points that have been made this evening into words in order to get it to the right people. I don't know. I'm hoping that maybe our sort of members of parliament or our respective politicians or candidates who are listening in this evening might be able to advise us as to the best way to go. I mean, I know that David Davis recommended that we get, where did I write it down? The Children's Commissioner for Wales to get it challenged, and also look at the Future Generations Act as well.
One other thing, is it worth going to the media with this as well, you know, Argus and you know, maybe even celebrities like somebody like Yola Williams, who's you know, a great campaigner for wildlife. Is it worth getting people like that, or at least, you know, letting them know what's going on? Maybe they would like to get involved.
Yeah, absolutely. So if there's anybody else that would actually like to speak now, can you just quickly say yes, me please, just because I can't seem to get onto the next screen, and I know that there are people waiting there, but it's not presenting me with that tiny little arrow to allow me to do so. So if you would like to speak, can you just unmute yourselves and just say anything now? But otherwise I'll hand over to Grevith, just so he can, I suppose, close the meeting really. Everyone's gone quiet. And there's the tumbleweed. So in terms of kind of just from myself, I would just like to thank you for your passion. Thank you for your fieriness, for your dragon fieriness. We do have fire, and we won't stay quiet about this, and we will you know, proceed. But it's been really, really lovely to know that when you stand on those beautiful fields behind us, and you feel, and you come across that desolation and destruction, that you can feel quite a small person in the community, but then actually you realize actually there are a wonderful group of people around you who feel exactly the same way. So from myself, thank you for being here this evening. If I just pass over to Grevith now.
Hi everyone again, and Susie, I think everyone would like to, I'm speaking on behalf of everyone, I say thanks for everything you've done today. It's been a very lengthy meeting, and to, you know, taken upon yourself to have led everyone today, I think is immense credit to yourself, and thanks so much for everything you've done. I know I was
thank you.
Thanks to you all for attending as well. Such a fantastic discussion had by everyone. So many great, interesting ideas presented. You can see I've done exactly the same as Laura. I've got loads down in my notepad here to take forward. I know, for example, Adrian, you just talked a little bit about the using the media, for example, and that's certainly something which I intend on doing going forward. And I've spoken to David about this and Laura at length about ways in which we can really take this forward into the media, both by way of press release and interviews. That's certainly something we're thinking of doing and are going to be doing in the coming weeks. I did also tell you that I was in the process of completing a letter, which I would then ask you all to sign. I understand there's been different ideas, you know, spread about how we can go about doing that, but I've just actually finished the letter. So I will be certainly posting that in the coming days for people to have a look at, and if they would like to amend certain things or present certain other arguments which have been neglected, I'm very happy for you to add those. As I say, it's a collective you know, it's a collective effort here. It's nothing independent or individual, and I'm very much looking forward to taking all your concerns on board and to see exactly what we can do to really get a good resolution for this, because it is something that, you know, everyone's extremely passionate about. I don't claim to know as much about this issue as many of you. I mean, I've listened to so many passionate contributions today, and you think, well, you know, I've learned a lot from listening to you. I do feel like I've learned a lot myself over the last couple of weeks, or well, week or so, being part of the group. But at the same time, I think it's really important now that consultation is massive, that people start listening to us, people start taking on board our concerns and not just thinking, well, you know, they're an absolute irrelevance, they can't do anything about it, and ultimately it's not going to go any further. And I think at the moment, we've got people involved, as you say. If we could get people, celebrities on board, that'd be fantastic. Members of the Senate, political candidates, MPs. We really have a bit of momentum now going. And I think it's about continuing that momentum to ensure that we are able to capitalise on the opportunities. We've got so many passionate individuals, people who are experts in their field. And I do believe, honestly, with a lot of hard work and dedication, we'll be able to get a really good result for Torfaen, which is exactly what we want. So thanks to all of you for everything you've contributed and continue to do so. And I look forward to sharing my thoughts and speaking to you in the coming days about these issues. I've got another 10 people who would like me to call them over the coming days to take their thoughts in as well. So I'm very much looking forward to speaking to the local people about that. But thanks to you all again. I very much appreciate all your input.
Well, thank you very much, everybody. Once again, I will put maybe the recording actually up on the page if I can do that, if it will allow me to, because of obviously the size of the file, because it's quite long. Otherwise, what I might actually do to create a bit of interest is if nobody, I'll find out obviously if anybody has any objections first, but we could potentially attract quite a lot of attention by popping this on YouTube. You saw the council meeting that went viral quite recently. Well, this is, you know, at the heart of I'm sure most communities who are feeling afflicted in the same way that we are. If we had everybody agree that it could be put up, we could literally, between all of us, the amount of people that it could actually reach, and I've already thought I might get in touch with Alan Titchmarsh because I touched his arm once and I'm a big fan, so I might send it to him and ask him if he can help in any way.
I'm glad you said you touched his arm.
Just his arm. But yes, so I would like to just say thank you everybody for your contribution. And for those of you who sat and listened, thank you for also being here, because your heart and your presence is very, very much felt, and this will definitely not be the end. So hopefully we can all continue having screensavers like the one behind me, and we can all continue to enjoy our fields. But yes, let's not let this put it on the back burner. Let's just move forward now and create even more fire. So I shall bid you farewell, everybody. Thank you again, and hopefully we will see everybody soon. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, Susie. Well done.
Everyone. Good
My
luck.
pleasure. Thank you.
Well done.